Chapter 22, Labour. I didn't realise how long it takes to buy a house. It seems like forever waiting on surveyors' reports, solicitors, bank to write letters. And the baby's due date was getting closer and Jane getting larger still. Jane was still holding down a full-time job. As well as planning and organising the move, all that and every night her room was home to the most rocking disco in town. The babies would go wild when I sang to them. Some friends say it was because they were trying to escape my singing. Honestly, I couldn't blame them if they were, but I wanted to be sure my little ones knew their daddy's voice. Then it happened. We had the completion date for the move. It was in the same week that Jane was due to give birth. Not the best timing, but at least we had a date. On one of my days off, I went to Leigh-on-Sea to pick up the keys for the new house. I was surprised that Jane came with me, as she was due to drop at any moment. But she would have hated missing out on anything, and there was no way I could have handled all the questions about it if she hadn't come along. On our way home, we stopped off for a bite to eat. The babies were taking a lot of Jane's resources, so she was always hungry. As we sat there digesting our meal, Jane mentioned that she felt a little bit tight across her belly. We put it down to too much chicken. I dropped Jane at home and then went to work for the late shift at Charing Cross. Jane had been booked to have a planned caesarean section. The way the babies were lying out would cause a lot of problems if they were left to have a natural birth. We did not want to risk that. I called Jane during my lunch break, which was on a late shift at about 9:30 in the evening, and all was fine. Just as I'd given the last tube train of the night the green signal to go, my radio crackled into life. It was my supervisor, Joe Thompson, a well-known wind-up merchant. He said I had to ring Jane's mum as it was urgent. Oh yeah, I laughed to myself. You don't know I spoke to Jane 4 hours ago. She's fine. I sauntered back to the operations room to hand in my radio for the night. I was spinning the radio in my hand as I walked in the door. Call Jane's mum. Joe looked anxious and my heart leapt into my mouth. He hadn't been pranking me. I hoped to God that I hadn't missed the birth. I called Angela. Jane's been taken to St Thomas Hospital, she explained. Before I'd known my dad was on his way round to take her to hospital. Even before I'd finished the call with Angela, I was working out how long it would take me to run to St Thomas's. As I started to gather my things together, Joe said, I'll drive you there. I headed for the exit with Joe following closely behind me. He hastily grabbed the car keys, jangling loudly. By car, it's a very short journey to the hospital, barely 3 minutes. I was about to become a father. I was excited and scared at the same time. I felt sick with nerves and anxiety. Because Charing Cross is so close to St Thomas's, I was the first of our family there. I stood near the ambulance entrance to the hospital, looked at each new arrival, hoping to see Jane. I was worried in case I was at the wrong hospital, or if Jane was delivering en route. Eventually I saw Dad's taxi pull into hospital grounds, closely followed by the ambulance Jane was in. I rushed to her side. As we were admitted to the emergency unit, she was lying in bed, looking perfectly calm and relaxed. I was a panicking mess. Then came the word. The delivery suite was ready for us. It was full of people. I could not believe how many staff were needed for what was meant to be a routine procedure. I must have looked worried, as Jane had to reassure me. There are 2 babies, so they need 2 teams. 1 for each baby. Thankfully, my concerns were brought to an abrupt halt by the arrival of the surgical assistant. It was not her calm presence or professionalism that stopped me and Jane in our tracks. It was that she was a spitting image of a lady from work. From her bleached blonde hair and red lipstick to her strong South London accent, she could have been Madeline's twin if she had one. Jane was given an epidural. It took a few attempts to get in the right position for the injection, but she eventually had the pain relief. The surgical team raised the short curtain across Jane's midriff so that she wouldn't see the incision being made. I was glad that I was holding Jane's hand. I didn't see the incision either, as I'm very squeamish and did not want to faint in there. The medical team were busy enough as it was. I must have gone pale anyway, as the anaesthetist asked if I was okay before inviting me to his side of the curtain. I saw my little girl enter the world. Feet first. She's out, I told Jane as the team rushed my baby girl to the side and started cleaning her up. And then we heard it. The first cry. She definitely had a healthy set of lungs in her. Now all we had to do was wait for her brother. He was coming out head first. Covered in mucus and already crying and screaming. The woman who looked like Madeline remarked, "You won't get a quiet moment from him." She was right. Olivia Lillian Whitehead, Louis Oliver Whitehead, entered the world kicking and screaming on the 9th of March 2010.